Bitcoin is trading at $108,000. We just had the highest weekly close ever in the history of Bitcoin. What happens next? Do we get a breakout? Do we cruise towards new all-time highs as many people are looking for? Or do we get a bit of a pullback? First, in this video, I'm going to dive into my thoughts on the charts and let you know which levels I'm looking at and how you can use that to your advantage to make more money when you're trading. Smash the like button if you are new here. Follow me, my page, my channel if you're not yet doing so. And let's take a look at the charts. So I think I want to start out just looking purely at this specific low time frame 1 hour chart on Bitcoin. And the reason for that is that we have been in a chop in Bitcoin since pretty much the middle of May, since we reached the all-time highs. And this is exactly what I said in the video where I broke down exactly that after the month of May, for the last 5 years, we have either gotten correction or chop for multiple months, and that is exactly where we're at right now. As you can see, since that all-time high in May, towards the end of May, we've just been in this range between 112 and 100,000 and just chopping around, and I think we've got some time left in this range. So let's bring this out first over here. This is exactly what I've shown several weeks ago. I made a video here on the channel, and the vertical lines represent May, and that is every single year. And you can see the red boxes, what happened. So we had sideways or correction every single time, and so far that is playing out once again. So that is why I say, like, everything I do here, I try and base it on charts and I try and base it on data, because that gives you the best possible edge. Now, obviously I'm human too, so I have emotions and I'm subject to a bias, but I try to always stay as objective as I can based on the data, based on the charts, and if the charts suggest whatever direction, I'm willing to flip in that direction. That is what traders do. Now, of course, depending on if you're a long-term investor, if you're just buying Bitcoin and you're holding it for 10 years, you're not going to change your bias on a weekly or a monthly basis, right? Maybe not even on a yearly basis. But at that point, if that's all that you're doing, then you shouldn't even be looking at the charts on a daily or weekly basis, right? Because you're just buying, and at periods of dips, maybe extreme oversold conditions, you're adding to your position, and your belief is over the next 10 years it's going up only. Then the short-term fluctuations don't matter. However, if you are swing trading or even day trading where your positions are lasting days or hours, you'll need to flip your bias more often. And based on what the charts suggest, that could mean short or long, sometimes within the same week, sometimes within the same month, sometimes even within the same day, depending on how low time frame you're trading. Regardless, getting back to this, you can see we're still following that exact pattern. And as you can see here, I haven't done the exact math, but on average, we're probably looking at anywhere between August and September where there's potential for this sideways and chop movement. So if we are going to get a breakout to the upside, typically based on the data, once again, we tend to start to only see moves towards August, maybe September. Then October and November, maybe even December, but October and November are the most bullish months historically speaking. So it makes complete sense for us to pause or stall here, or even have somewhat more of a correction leading into that period. And again, it's just following historic or seasonal data. So going back to this hourly chart over here, we are within this range. And quite simply, until we break out of this range, nothing is really happening. And we can continue to chop in this range for several more weeks, maybe even another month or 2 months. And you can see here, what are we looking at in terms of levels? Well, we have this obvious level here that I've marked on the chart where we can sweep this low. We can even drop back down to 104,000. We have a fair value gap here. We have this low over here. So being aware of that, yes, it does look like it's likely like we're going to sweep these all-time highs at some point, simply just due to liquidity, just due to the fact that there are so many people who are shorting, and you can see I've circled a whole bunch of these previous highs. That's where people are putting stops. So there's a lot of liquidity here, up to 112,000. But at the same time, a lot of people want us to break to the upside, meaning they're longing after big moves up. And then we tend to see this volatility, these moves up and down, several $1,000 moves, because people are longing towards the top, looking for that all-time high again. And then a drop of several $1,000s is going to liquidate them. It's the game over and over and over again. And as long as people keep trading with high leverage, that's what's going to keep happening. So instead of longing tops, looking for that breakout, wait for the pullback, wait for the sweep. See if we sweep this low and reclaim, targeting the highs, or see if we drop as low as maybe 104,000 into this fair value gap, sweep this low, and then target along into the highs. Okay, so if you're looking for short-term trading, that is what you can do. By the way, if you're not trading on BLOFIN yet, make an account, link in the description down below. You get the best bonuses. We're doing giveaways, iPhone giveaways up to $9,400 USDT cashback on trading volume. It's a great place to trade. Link in the description down below. Now you can back up what I'm saying here even more is by just looking at the liquidation heat maps over here, and you can see very clearly in yellow that is the strongest liquidation clusters, and you can see we're currently trading just above 108,000 at this point in time. That yellow is sitting at about 107,600, so it's very likely we're probably going to drop into that first and maybe a little bit lower. But you can also see here towards the highs at almost 110,000, there's also liquidation. So based on this and based on the chart and based on what we know, we can see, okay, we're probably going to take a bit of a drop, liquidate the longs, and then move higher to liquidate the shorts once again. This is the game. As long as we're in that range, we're going to keep flip-flopping around. And at the lows, once it takes its liquidity, you're going to see a lot of people start getting bearish and they start shorting, and then it does the exact opposite and it goes to the highs. So the nice thing is, if you know this and you've seen this enough times, you can actually just use this against them. So you wait for the drop, and you can even short into the drop, and then once this liquidity is taken, it's very likely that it's going to reverse back up. So you can look for longs once they've been liquidated, and vice versa when it goes higher. Now going back to the weekly chart once again, what we can still see is that there is still a bearish RSI divergence present here on weekly. And this is still concerning in my opinion, because it means we're getting closer and closer towards the end of the cycle, which I'll put up a chart in a second on the screen. We basically have 3 to 4 months left of the cycle max, if the cycle is anything like previous cycles, at most. So there is chance still for some sort of melt up. I think we're going to hit those all-time highs just purely based on the liquidity. So 112 we probably hit. Maybe we take a run to 120, which people would maybe interpret as a breakout to the upside, thinking we're going to 150 or whatever, and then that ends up being in Wyckoff distribution, the UTAD. I also made a video about that. I will share that in another video once again. But basically a false break, liquidity grab, trap all the bulls up here, and then the cycle is over. And depending on how long it takes for us to get there, I think the window is closing in. Because you can see here on the previous historic cycles, the maximum that we've gone after a halving is 550 days. We are currently closing in on 450 days. So we have approximately 100 to 120 days, depending on how long the cycle has gone. But that's as long as any previous cycle has gone in the history of Bitcoin. So unless this time is different, we have a window of 3 to 4 months. So that means if we chop around for a few more weeks, maybe take a run for a few weeks and hit 120 and then drop, that perfectly lines up with the potential peak based on the previous cycles. And it would also perfectly line up with a UTAD and Wyckoff distribution, which is an upthrust after distribution, false break, bull trap, whatever you want to call it. It drops back below, and then we see the bearish RSI divergence play out, and we get our bear market in 2026. That is still the most likely scenario I'm leaning towards at this point in time. And then we have to wait and see, how much do altcoins pump? If Bitcoin gets a run to 120, do we see a really big pump in altcoins, or do they only get a small little rally? And that remains to be seen. But overall, big picture, this is how I'm seeing it. Probably a few more weeks of chop, maybe downside first. I don't know if it's 107 or 104, then probably a run towards 112, maybe a run towards 120 as a kind of false break. And then we have to keep an eye on that. If that happens, it's always if then. So as it develops, whatever the chart is showing us, we can look at the potential scenarios. If we break 112, then 120 becomes likely, but we also have to keep in mind, if 120 fails, then it could potentially be a Wyckoff distribution, and we could also be looking at the start of a new bear market, which the closer we get to the end of the year, the closer we get to 2026, the more likely it becomes that the bull market is over and that a new bear market is starting, simply because of the fact that bear markets happen every 4 years so far. 2014, 2018, 2022. The next one in line is 2026, unless this time is different, but it's probably not going to be. You probably already know, but in case you don't, I've opened my VIP doors for a short period of time. They're open for about 3 more weeks till July 28th. Then I'm closing the doors again. If you want more information on that, the link is in the description down below. You can join me and 3,300 members from all around the world in my private Discord, where I share my analysis every single day, charts, real-time trade setups. You can ask me questions. I'm in there every day. You get access to all my courses, my monthly video updates, my quarterly newsletter, so much more. And it is risk-free for 60 days. There's a 100% money-back guarantee, but you have to sign up before the doors close July 28th. The link is in the description down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.